This here in yellow is the expanded widget. It's an amazing widget because it adapts to the space available, but it can also cause some headaches. And I'm here to show you how to use this widget correctly so that you don't have the headaches and you get the results that you're looking for. This is the FlutterCoach, and without further ado, let's dive in. Let's say you want to have an app that has, for example, a row like this where you have one item at one end. This could be a container or a button or whatever other widget you want to put there. Then you have another widget in the middle like this and another widget at the end. And you want to make sure that your widget in the middle always takes up the available space, such that even if the size of the window changes or if you use it across different devices, this item in the middle takes up all the space. Then the expanded widget is the perfect widget for that. Now remember, this is an example. Your layout does not have to be like this. You know, your widget, your expanded widget could be at the end of the row. It could be at the beginning. You could have two expanded widgets. Whatever layout you want to have, that's fine. But since this layout works well for demonstrating this widget, this is what we'll use in this tutorial. A point to note about the expanded widget, and in my experience, this is what causes a lot of headache, is that the expanded widget must be a child of either a row, a column, or a flex. A row, as you probably know, arranges its children horizontally. If you'd like to learn more about the row and its properties, check out my row video, which should be popping up on a card just about now. A column arranges its children vertically. Again, for more about the column, check out my column video, which should be popping up on a card right about now. And the flex is a widget that arranges its children in a direction that you specify, which means that a row is a flex that arranges its children horizontally, and a column is a flex that arranges its children vertically. In our demo code, I have a very simple app. This is just the stock app that gets created when you create a new Flutter project. And inside the body of the scaffold, I'm going to put an expanded widget. And inside the expanded widget, I'm going to put in a colored container that will allow us to observe the behavior of the expanded widget. Now, inside this container, I will put in a simple sentence. Note that I have not put this expanded widget inside a row, a column, or a flex. Let's try and build this and see what happens. And there we have nothing that has been built. If we check the terminal, inside the debug console, we have these errors that have just occurred. And the reason is the expanded widget is not inside a row, column, or flex to give it constraints. So let's minimize this terminal and go ahead and put this expanded widget inside a row. Control Shift and R gives us the shortcut for wrapping, and we wrap it to the row and rebuild. Let's see what happens. As you can see, now our widget has been built. We have our sentence and we have our colored container inside our expanded widget. And if we resize this window, we can see that it resizes along with it. It takes up all the available space. Back in the code, if I change this row to a column and rebuild, we can see that now our expanded widget has taken up the vertical space that is available. If we stretch this window downwards, we can see that it occupies all that space. If we resize it vertically, you see what happens. It adjusts its size to take up the space available. Back in the code, if we change this column to a flex, the flex widget needs a direction property. Let's give it the horizontal axis and rebuild. Our expanded widget has now been built. And if we stretch this horizontally, you can see that the widget takes up all the available space. Back in the code, if we change this direction to vertical and rebuild, we can see that our expanded widget has been rebuilt, but it now takes up all the vertical space available to it. A simple resize helps to demonstrate that. I would like to demonstrate this special ability of the expanded widget to take up all the available space by contrasting it against a container. So I'll go ahead and change this flex back to row. And inside this row, I will add two colored containers on either side of the expanded widget. Let's go ahead and rebuild this. And now we have our two colored containers on either side of the expanded widget. If we resize this window, we can see that the expanded widget adjusts its size as well. Now back in the code, instead of having this expanded widget, I will replace it with a container. Let's rebuild and see. You can see the difference between the behavior of the container and the expanded widget. Does not matter what the size of the window is, the size of the container does not change. But with the expanded widget, as we have seen, when you resize the window, the size of the expanded widget changes to make sure it takes up all the available space. So let's change this back to the expanded widget and rebuild, and we are back to the expanded widget. Are you enjoying this video so far? Please consider liking it and subscribing to this channel. Let's go on. The expanded widget has a property that we can see by holding down Control and Space, and this property is known as flex. Sometimes you need to have more than one expanded widget in the same row or in the same column. Let's go ahead and put another expanded widget inside this row. Let's give this second expanded widget a slightly different color. Let's rebuild this and see. We now have our two expanded widgets, and if we resize this window, we can see that now all the available space is shared equally between the two. And that's where the flex factor comes in, because what if you want this first expanded widget to always be twice as big as the second one, regardless of how big the window is or regardless of how much space we have available? That's why you use the flex widget. So back in the code, let's put in the flex property. If you hover over the flex property, you will see that it takes an integer, and the default value of flex is 1. So if you do not define the flex property, its default value will be 1. But now we want this first expanded widget to be twice as big as the second one. So we shall assign the integer 2 to the first one, then assign the integer 1 to the second one. Let's rebuild and see what happens. Now we can see that the first expanded widget is twice as big as the second one. And if we resize this window, that ratio remains the same. What actually happens is that all the flex properties of the expanded widgets inside a row, for example, or inside a column or a flex, all these flex values are added up. In this case, we have 2 plus 1, which becomes 3. And so we have 3 units of space to be divided among the expanded widgets in our row. And this space will be divided according to the flex assigned to each expanded widget. So the first one gets 2 out of 3 units of space, that is 2/3 of the space that is available. And the second one gets 1 out of 3, or 1/3 of the space available. And that's why we have this difference in size. And that is how you use the expanded widget in Flutter. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below and I will help you out. If you have any other comments as well, they are very much welcome in the comment section. And if you have found value in this video, consider liking it and subscribing to this channel with the notifications turned on so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. This has been the FlutterCoach, and I'll see you in the next one.